Sarah had always prided herself on her keen observational skills. It was a trait that served her well in her work as a meticulous archivist, a profession that relied on accuracy and attention to detail. This made the creeping inconsistencies in her life all the more disturbing. It wasn't just a fleeting feeling of déjà vu or a momentary lapse in memory. These were tangible discrepancies that chipped away at the foundation of her understanding of the world. The street sign, she now noticed, wasn't just a slightly different font. The street name itself seemed subtly altered, a single letter out of place, yet she had a vivid memory of it being spelled differently her entire life. Her neighbor's blue car, upon closer inspection, was an entirely different make and model, though the color was still a similar shade of dark blue. The barista at the coffee shop, while still familiar, had a small birthmark near his eye that Sarah had never noticed before, despite being a regular customer for years. These weren't isolated incidents. The patterns seemed to be spreading, infecting the very fabric of her daily life. The newspaper headlines would sometimes report events that Sarah had no recollection of ever happening. The plots of her favorite books would have minor but significant alterations. Even photographs from her past seemed subtly different, with unfamiliar people appearing in the background or the expressions on familiar faces being slightly off. Sarah started to meticulously document these anomalies in a small notebook, a desperate attempt to make sense of the chaos that was slowly engulfing her reality. She would write down the date, the specific inconsistency she observed, and her clear recollection of how it should have been. The notebook soon filled with page after page of these unsettling discrepancies, a tangible record of her unraveling world. She tried to confirm her memories with others, showing them the altered street sign, pointing out the differences in the movie dialogue, but everyone she spoke to insisted that she was mistaken, that things had always been this way. Their unwavering certainty only amplified Sarah's growing sense of isolation and the terrifying possibility that she was the one who was losing her mind. The psychological toll was immense. Sarah found herself constantly on edge, her anxiety levels soaring. She became hyper-vigilant, scrutinizing every detail of her surroundings, searching for the next subtle alteration. Sleep offered little respite, as her dreams were often filled with distorted versions of familiar places and faces, leaving her feeling even more disoriented upon waking. As the anomalies persisted, they began to escalate in their strangeness. One morning, Sarah woke up to find her apartment rearranged, furniture in different positions, artwork on the walls that she didn't recognize. She frantically searched for signs of a break-in, but all the doors and windows were locked. The only explanation was that the changes had occurred while she was asleep, a terrifying thought that made her feel utterly vulnerable in her own home. She started to consider different explanations, no matter how outlandish they seemed. Could she be experiencing some kind of mass delusion, a shared hallucination affecting only her? Was she somehow shifting between parallel realities, each subtly different from the last? Or was something else at play, something more sinister and deliberate? The thought that someone, or something, might be intentionally altering her reality began to take root in her mind. She started to feel like she was being watched, manipulated, her perception of the world subtly twisted for some unknown purpose. She checked for hidden cameras, scrutinized her online activity, but found no concrete evidence to support her growing paranoia. One day, while looking through old family photos, Sarah noticed a recurring symbol in the background of several pictures, a small, intricate knot that she had no memory of ever seeing before. She showed the photos to her mother, the only living member of her immediate family, but her mother didn't recognize the symbol either. Yet, there it was, subtly present in moments from her past that felt undeniably real. The feeling of being manipulated intensified. It was as if someone was subtly rewriting her history, altering the details of her life to fit some unknown narrative. She started to feel like she was losing her grip on her own identity, her memories becoming unreliable, her sense of self slowly dissolving into this shifting reality. One afternoon, while walking through a familiar park, Sarah noticed that the trees looked different. The leaves were the wrong shape, the bark had a texture she didn't recognize. She sat down on a bench, her head spinning, trying to reconcile the park she remembered with the one she was seeing. And then she noticed a group of people walking by. They looked familiar, like people she knew, but their faces were slightly off, their expressions subtly wrong, their movements jerky and unnatural. It was like looking at poorly rendered copies of people she knew, their humanity somehow diminished. A wave of pure terror washed over Sarah. This wasn't just about subtle inconsistencies anymore. The very people around her seemed different. The uncanny valley had opened up beneath her feet, and she was falling into a world that looked familiar but felt fundamentally alien. She stood up, her legs trembling, and started to run, desperate to escape this distorted version of her reality. She ran through the park, past the subtly wrong trees and the unnervingly familiar faces, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she had to get away, to find some place where things felt right, where the world made sense. As she ran, she noticed something else. The sky above her seemed to be shifting, the color subtly changing, the clouds forming strange, unnatural patterns. And then, for a fleeting moment, the world around her flickered like a faulty television screen, and she caught a glimpse of something else, something just beneath the surface of her altered reality, a landscape that was alien and incomprehensible, filled with strange structures and impossible geometries. The flicker vanished as quickly as it appeared, and she was back in the subtly wrong park, but the glimpse had been enough. She knew, with a chilling certainty, that her reality had been fundamentally altered, and she had no idea why, or if she would ever find her way back to the world she once knew. The comforting predictability of her life had been shattered, replaced by a terrifying uncertainty that stretched into an infinite, subtly wrong horizon. Sarah ran blindly, her breath catching in her throat. The image of the flickering, alien landscape burned into her mind. The park, once a familiar sanctuary, now felt like a stage set, its props and actors subtly off kilter. She burst out onto the street, the cars looking slightly wrong, their colors a shade too vibrant, their designs subtly unfamiliar. The people walking by seemed to glide rather than walk, their smiles fixed and unblinking, their conversations disjointed snippets of nonsensical phrases. She tried to flag down a taxi, but the driver who stopped looked vaguely familiar, like someone she had met once years ago but couldn't quite place. His eyes held a strange, knowing glint as he asked her destination, and when she told him her address, he simply nodded with an unnerving smile and drove in the opposite direction of where she knew her apartment to be. Panic surged through Sarah. She jumped out of the taxi while it was stopped at a red light and stumbled onto the sidewalk, her heart pounding in her chest. She tried to call Emily again, her fingers fumbling with her phone, but the contact list looked different. The names slightly rearranged, Emily's picture replaced with a blurry image of someone she didn't recognize.